What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Zone. My name is Brad, and it is another big day for earnings. As you can see on the title, we got Airbnb, Upstart, Lyft, Zillow, Robinhood, MGM. So many stocks to cover and react to today. I also wanted to kind of just cover real quick the CPI report and go over exactly what we're seeing in the overall market. We talked about this last week that I thought we were getting close to approaching correction territory, and it's certainly looking like that's playing out. So we'll cover that a little bit here in the front half of the show, and then obviously as we get closer and closer to the close, we'll cover Airbnb. I'll give you all those expectations and more. But what's up, Kevin Hawthorne? I wanted to welcome some people in here. What's up, my man? Good to see you, Savvy Money Show. Good to see you, Duke, Fernando Pereira, all my familiar faces. I love to see you guys. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of your afternoon. If you guys haven't, and I haven't mentioned this in a while, if you aren't on our free email list, every day before the show, I put out exactly what I'll be covering and then kind of give a breakdown on a specific stock that I think is worth keeping an eye on. If that's something that interests you and it's absolutely free, go check the link down in the description below. Would love to have you guys be a part of that community, help me grow what we got going on here. Also, Don from the Don Front Show will be live today after hours. He'll be live at 7 o'clock, probably going over some of these earnings that I'm going to be reacting to in real time. He'll kind of give you the aftermath of it once everything kind of settles down a little bit and we can kind of deep dive into the weeds. So you're not going to miss that as well. If you guys haven't heard the news, Don and I have merged, and so he brought most of his community over here, and that's how we're working it. So hopefully you guys will be catching him as well. Husker says, anyone catch the plate on the truck that ran through my port today? I don't even know how to take that, to Husker. I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to leave that one alone. Just saying. So let's go ahead and take a look at the S&P 500 for a hot second right now. Let's expand this a little bit. There we go. So as you can see, this is, I think we're definitely getting into a correction territory. This is a 4-hour chart. Let's go over to the daily, and so you guys can really kind of see what's going on. Obviously, not a great day for the S&P 500 today. It's down 1.5%. I say not a great day, but it is what it is. I mean, I wouldn't like freak out over something like this, but could this be potentially the start of correction of a correction? I think there's certainly reason to believe that. If you guys are looking at the zones here that Don has created for us, you can see that there's this zone here that really bounced off of around 49.32. Again, the S&P 500 went all the way up to 5,000 and has now really retreated from that number, sitting here at 49.44. So could we see some more red days ahead? Well, if you guys didn't catch the CPI numbers, here they are. The recent inflation reading came in hotter than expected, with the consumer price index rising 0.3% over the last month and 3.1% over the last year. That surpassed economists' forecasts. The core inflation rate, excluding food and gas, also exceeded expectations, signaling that the Fed may delay rate cuts later into the year. A lot of people didn't like that. As you guys know, rates come down, stocks go up, vice versa, right? And so that's why we saw the sell-off today. Despite investor hopes for earlier rate reductions, the Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell and other officials have emphasized the need for more data to ensure inflation is in a sustainable downward path towards their 2% target. And so today's numbers didn't really make a case for rate cuts. This cautious stance suggests that rate cuts are likely to be pushed closer to the second half of the year, as I had mentioned earlier in January. And decision that's closely watched by markets and political figures alike. For detailed breakdown of the report, stay tuned. We're going to continue to react to this, and then also just kind of get a feel for where the market's heading. So, in my opinion, and I said this about 2-3 weeks ago, I was like, it feels as if the market's getting a little bit toppy. You know, you have Nvidia that just continues to go straight up. You have a lot of the big tech stocks also going bananas. It just feels like there's a couple of uh, uh, much of the major stocks, really, especially in big tech, that are getting a bit ahead of themselves. A lot of investors were pricing in rate cuts, and now with the CPI report and Fed being a little bit cautious on rate cuts, now's the time, I think, for a little bit of a correction because of how much was priced in, how much these stocks got a little bit ahead of themselves. So, where can we go from here? Now, the bounce on the 49 was this 49.33 could be encouraging. That maybe it doesn't go any lower than that. But when I'm talking correction, I think that we see at least about 5% or so. I think that that seems like a reasonable correction. I don't think that there's any reason to believe that it can't get down to around 4,800, and so I think that that's going to be the spot, which is marked by this yellow zone here. 4812 is at the top of that zone. So I think the S&P 500 has the ability to correct down to those levels and really not be too detrimental. I think it can correct down to those levels, and then second half of the year we see a nice little rip up. Why? Because if we do see that those rate cuts in the second half of the year, or a rate cut or two, investors are going to love that, especially on the tech side of things. Speculative stocks are even going to love that as well. Stocks that we all love to see that maybe aren't making any money but have insane growth, that have kind of been stuck in a doghouse for a while. SoFi comes to mind. Really great growth, but they're not profitable. So higher interest rates are going to impact stocks like this the most. But if we start hearing about rate cuts, watch for stocks like SoFi, and really, obviously some of the other larger cap stocks in tech to do well too. Those are the ones that are the most sensitive to rate cuts or rate hikes as well. And so I think that if we start seeing that in the second half, in my opinion, that's where we're going to see some kind of face ripping type of stuff. If we see that inflation is coming down, obviously CPI numbers didn't reflect that this time around, but we all know that a lot of things can change from point A to point B. I will say that I think that one of the big reasons why CPI came in higher than expected was because jobs came in higher than expected by like a couple 100,000. Economists were way off by that. And we've talked about it on this show before about how economists are almost worse than the weathermen. They can be so wrong and so way off base on their estimation, and they get to keep their job. At least the weathermen are somewhat close to their predictions, right? And so yeah, Don says there's no way we're seeing cuts with everything just peachy. Again, I think that we could potentially see that later in the year, not anytime soon. And so that's why I'm looking at. By the way, Don, good to see you, my man. That's why I'm looking at the S&P 500 potentially on the start of its correction. I think as um, more and more investors buy into the idea that rate cuts aren't coming anytime soon, we could see more of this selling off because of a lot of stocks got ahead of themselves in anticipation of this rate cut, and don't think that we're going to be seeing that. Snookeroo says afternoon all, finally a downish day. Yeah, and I think downish is a great way to put it. I mean, the S&P is only down 1.5%. Isn't like it's a big deal. We start stringing a couple of days like this together, and then I'm going to start really getting excited about where this stops so we can buy the effing dip. And again, I think that 4,800 area could potentially be that spot to watch for a bottoming out of a correction if that even happens. So that's what I'm looking at. Let's get on to some earnings, shall we? Feel free to pop on anytime, Don, if you're available. I don't know what you got going on today. I saw that you didn't go live on Sunday, so I did let everybody know. Hopefully, that's still accurate that you'll be live on this evening on the channel. So I let everybody know. Make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to get Don's reactions as well, and he'll answer any of your questions, especially if you are real big into options. You're trying to learn how to trade options. Don is the guy for that, for sure. He'll take a little bit more of a deep dive into these zones as well. If you're curious as to what these yellow and blue boxes are on my screen, that's where you'll learn the most from a guy like Don. So Airbnb, This is your daily chart. It's had a hell of a move, and it's having a down day. Obviously, today it's down nearly 2%. But let's take a look into what expectations are here for Airbnb. Earnings expectations are expected to come in at 70 cents per share, $2.16 billion in revenue, 10 upward revisions to 5 down. And this is something that has been interesting, right? Because demand has still been pretty good for travel in particular. Airbnb has done really well and on from a growth standpoint too, with them growing around 20% year over year on revenue. I anticipate those numbers to be in line this quarter with that kind of performance. This is trading at 18 times next year's earnings, so right in line with the S&P 500. Not really that crazy as far as valuation's concerned. I still like it here. Some might think that that's a bit expensive. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that there's a lot to like. The expectation from the street is that there is going to be a moderation in travel demand. So if we see any sort of slowing of growth, that's going to be that's going to create huge sell off here for Airbnb. The $2.16 billion in revenue is supposed to represent 14% year over year. Last quarter, they were at 20% year over year. So they can come in at that same 20% number year over year. I think that they should do quite well. And so that's something to certainly keep an eye on. I think strong growth and revenue could still be on the table here. You know, slowing demand has slowed in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to like material things and discretionary items, but it hasn't really slowed all that much in travel. And in fact, we've kind of seen some increases there. So okay, Don, cool. Good to hear. So Don confirmed that he'll be live later around 7 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys are tuning in for that. And so there's your expectations on Airbnb. I know a lot of you guys are also there. A lot of you guys yesterday was asking about Upstart, which I found interesting. Upstart's had a rough go for quite some time. We expand this out on Upstart. It's been rough. Had a nice little run here last year, and then got smacked back down on really just growth issues. Earnings per share expected to come in at a loss of 14 cents, $135 million in revenue, and no upward revisions on this. Could that be a contrarian indicator? I think not. The growth on Upstart has been atrocious. Last quarter, they growth slowed by 45% compared to the year prior. I don't think that there's much to like here still. This is trading at $3 billion. And I just got done telling you that revenue is expected to come in at 135 million. So market cap is what? 10 times what their annual revenue is, essentially? I don't think so. I think it's still expensive. Obviously, anything can happen on earnings, but I would steer clear of this one, at least for now, because of those numbers. It's just not great. I can't really get behind it. Some might say, oh, well, and the stock today is down 7%. My goodness. And on those CPI numbers, it's another one that's super sensitive to that sort of thing, right? Upstart doesn't make any money. Growth isn't there. It's going to be ultra sensitive to interest rate hikes or a pause in cuts or whatever you want to call it. So if the Fed's going to continue to sustain interest rates here, then Upstart's not going anywhere unless they have something phenomenal in their earnings. Just probably wouldn't give this a second look. Lyft. Now, Uber had pretty decent earnings and performed quite well off of those earnings as we are now officially into the close. Lyft expected earnings per share here for them is 8 cents, $1.22 billion, 8 upper revisions to 3 down. I don't know what to make of this one, honestly. It's trading, it's expensive. 24 times next year's earnings. Growth here is, I don't think, justifies the forward PE on this. And so I probably would also be cautious on Lyft and Uber in general. I mean, I've said this for years now that Uber is just not something that I really want to get into. they spend more money than they can make, and it's absolutely insane. And so Lyft's kind of in that same vein. I really couldn't get behind that. As far as any sort of investment's concerned. Robinhood is now popping off here after hours. Pretty strong move. It's now up 3.5%. Was just about to cover this one as far as expectations are concerned. So let me just do this real quick. Earnings were expected to come in at 7 cents. $452 million in revenue was expected. The street was pretty split on this as far as upward versus downward revisions. And let's go ahead and see if I can't find what those numbers are on Robinhood right quick. See if I can't get that pulled up for you guys. They came right out of the gate as soon as the market closed. Robinhood was out with it. I like it. Don't make me wait forever, right? I don't see any numbers as of yet. As soon as they come through, I will be happy to share them with you. But nothing so far. Stocks up, around 3.5% or so. Somebody asked if I was covering Robinhood. I'm literally covering it right now. Sweet and salty nut. Sorry if I poo-pooed on your Upstart for too long, but I hope you prove me wrong. I hope you prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Whole car industry has slowed. Upstart won't be any different, according to Savvy Money Show. About 100 of you guys in here so far, so make sure you hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so already. I certainly would appreciate it. Don will be live later on this evening as well. Kind of cover some earnings that maybe you might have some questions on after the dust settles, and anything else that you guys want to chat about. Robinhood kind of a little bit all over the place right now. I'm not seeing any numbers as of yet. Let's see here. Let's do this because I want to make sure we got Airbnb up here as well. So here's your Airbnb 5-minute chart. Not really a whole lot of movement on that. I don't think those numbers are out, but we can continue to monitor that. Robinhood is here on the left side of your screen. And I don't see any numbers yet on Robinhood. There's kind of some weird movement. Maybe there isn't. It looked like there's some decent volume coming in, like earnings were out, but I'm not seeing that they are. I got a little premature on that one, guys. Happens to the best of us. Oh my God, Robinhood's still flying. What's going on? Now it's up 9.33%. Look at that boner candle. Holy shit. All right, let's get back to Robinhood. What's going on here? I believe I just saw them. Here we go. They came in at 3 cents per share. What did I say the expectation was? 7 cents was the expectation. Is that right? Yeah, that looks right. I always like the cross reference. You guys always know that I do. I want to make sure that I get this right on why we're seeing. So let's see here. Twenty 2023 record revenue of 1.9 billion, up 37% year over year. 471 million in Q4. Net positive transfers from every major brokerage competitor fuel strong net deposits of 4.6 billion in Q4. That says 3 cents per share, but that doesn't sound right. Let's see if Seeking Alpha's got anything on this yet, because I'm kind of scratching my head at this right now. Stock is flying. Also, Airbnb has just jumped. Here we go. We will cover Upstart, Gabriel, in just a second. There's a lot of stuff that's been released virtually at the same time. Let me zoom out here on Robinhood as now that or sorry on Airbnb as that's now up 7.5% and climbing. We'll get back to Robinhood in just a second once the dust settles there, at least a little bit. Airbnb came in Q4 revenue $2.22 billion, 2.16 billion was expected, so a beat there. Adjusted EBITDA margin 33% versus 29.9, a beat there. Q1 revenue is expected to come in at 2.03 to 2.07. The expectation there was at 2.02, a beat on guidance. And as we all know, guidance numbers is what influences stocks the most through earnings. So they're guiding higher than the expectation, which is amazing in Q1. Airbnb to back up to, to buy back up to $6 billion of Class A common stock. So not only did they beat guidance, but they announced a $6 billion buyback. Airbnb Q4 nights and experiences booked 98.8. That's compared to 93.6 million. That is incredible. So they beat across the board, smashed their quarter, and then also beat expectations on the current quarter that they are reporting on. Airbnb knocked it out of the park, guys. Knocked it out of the park. What a great quarter for them. Don said Airbnb sold off and bounced. Weird place to bounce. Unless you're here on this channel. As you can see, came down to the bottom of this zone that Don has drawn out for us. And by the way, again, you want access to this, you want to learn more from us, take a look at our free email list. Link is in the description. I put out emails every single day, and then you can come in here and tune into the show as well. So make sure you guys are doing that as Airbnb is now climbing up almost 10% after hours, and it's looking absolutely incredible. Let's check back in on Robinhood real quick. And now Airbnb is officially over 10%. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit more on Airbnb. Still flying. Robinhood is now up 9.5%, so almost 10%. Still on the move here. What a move for Airbnb. My goodness. Speaking of incredible moves, Robinhood is also on one here. Let's break this down. They came in. Yeah, see, this is weird. Am I clicking on the wrong one? I had Robinhood's earnings expected to come in at 7 cents. I think that was wrong. It looks as if a loss of 1 was the expectation. So they came in at 3 cents. So they beat earnings. Sales came in at $471 million, beating the $456 million estimate. Adjusted operating expenses for the full year to be in the range of 1.85 to 1.95, which is a beat as well. Trying to see what guidance is here. That's probably what's moving this up. Gold subscribers increased 25% year over year to 1.42 million. That is the reason right there. Gold subscribers of Robinhood increased 25% year over year. That's a huge number, especially compared to what we saw in 23 and even 22. Average revenue per user, or ARPU, increased by 23% year over year to $81. That is also really good. Wow. Cash and cash equivalents totaled 4.8 billion compared to 6.3 at the end of 2022. Decrease was primarily driven by purchase of 55 million Robinhood shares, movement of some corporate cash into investments. Here's your guidance to 2024 expense plan includes growth investments in new products, features, and international expansion while getting more efficient in our existing business. Taken together, we expect both GAAP total operating expenses and non-GAAP combined adjusted operating expenses and SBC for full year 2024 to be in the range of 1.85 to 1.95 billion, which is also a beat on guidance. And as I just got done mentioning to you guys earlier, guidance is king. And Airbnb came in and crushed guidance as well. That stock is up, gave back some of its gains, but still hanging up here around 8.5%. Robinhood doing the same. Let's take a look at Upstart on the left side of your screen. I'm going to pull that up. And doesn't look like there's any movement on that just yet on Upstart. So let's go ahead and check in on a couple other ones. MGM also was reporting earnings today. I don't see any movement on that just yet. Maybe a little bit. Lyft skyrocketed, also up 17.5%. Lyft is going bananas. What an afternoon. What an afternoon so far. Unbelievable. Robinhood goes off. Is this 2021? Is it 20? Anybody? Did I go back in time? This is bananas. All right. Lyft revenue came in at 1.22 billion versus 1.22 billion that was expected. So in line on revenue. Gross bookings 3.72 to 3.67 that was expected. So that's a beat. They see positive free cash flow for the first time in 2024. That's why the stock is up, ladies and gentlemen. Free cash flow for the first time in 2024 is the expectation. They see Q1 bookings around $3.5 to $3.6 billion, which is a solid beat over the 3.48 that was expected. And that is why Lyft continues to go bananas. Look at this. It's up 22%. Anybody take a play on Lyft? Sweet and Salty Nuts says, I only came here because I searched for Upstart and it's the only one you're avoiding. I'm not avoiding it, bro. Nothing's happening. Relax. Chill the hell out. It'll come. It's just not moving. All these other ones are. Relax. All right, let's pull up Upstart. Let's see a couple people saying it's moving. So we'll appease the crowd. But I don't see anything moving here. It's not moving. Or if the numbers are out, then nobody cares. So, but I'll look it up. Lyft is, by the way, Lyft is just going crazy right now. I don't see any numbers on Upstart at all. So as soon as I do, I promise I will cover it, but it ain't moving. So we're not going to cover it if it ain't moving. So just relax. Keep your panties on. Zillow looks like those numbers are out. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. That stock is up 2%. Yeah, here we go. Q4 revenue was 474 million, up 9% year over year, above the midpoint of the company's outlook range by 31 million. Full year revenue was 1.9 billion, down 1% year on year. On a GAAP basis, net loss was 73 million in Q4. They guide up on revenue. The estimate was 500 million, so they're estimating 495 to 510. Real estate market looks like it might be coming back, but Don's our resident expert on that. You could be the judge, Don. But looks like they're guiding higher than expectations. EBITDA is also up higher, 95 to 105 million. So really good stuff there from Zillow. And the stock's up. It's up 2%. Not a big deal there, but it's up 2%. Lyft continues to climb, now up 24%. Still going up. All right. That's what. Yeah. Thank you, Don. Thank you for stepping in. I don't see any halts on Upstart. Zillow's continuing to climb. By the way, it doesn't look like it's halted. It just looks like no volume. Feel like it would tell me, but I don't see anything here. You guys and your Upstart. We will cover it, I promise. And I already gave expectations at the top of the show. It's one of the first ones I covered. So if you're coming in midstream, scroll back. All right. Weeble says halted. Okay, well then it's halted. I can't talk about it if nothing's happening with it. So we'll just have to wait. All right. So let's go back to Airbnb. If you guys missed those earnings, that stock is also doing incredibly well. Up 4.5% on a beat across the board. They announced a $6 billion buyback. They beat on revenue. They beat on earnings, and then came in and beat on expectations for the Q1 on guidance. All good things. So they crushed it. Lyft also announced that they are one of the big reasons why this is up 24% It's because they announced for the first time ever free cash flow expectations in 2024. And so this stock continues to climb, now up over 25%. Robinhood, um, Robinhood also having a hell of a day. It's up 10%. I'm sorry, 9%. It was up over 10. And came in and beat across the board as well. 25% increase year on year on active accounts. ARPU was also up 25% year over year, which is something we haven't seen from Robinhood in a while. And so that stock's looking really good here too. So why does this matter? Where is this a tradable event? I'm not sure. I mean, the 25% increase is certainly awesome. We haven't seen it above $12 since January 11th. It's trading at 13.10 right now. So that's all the way up here. We haven't seen it at those levels since last year. And so the next spot I would probably take a look at on Robinhood, see if it breaks up over 1330. That's the next resistance for it. If it doesn't, then maybe hold off. But if it breaks through that resistance, we could see some more momentum on that. Like the way that's going. Going back to Airbnb, we can go to the daily chart on this one too. And it's trading right now at 154, which is the top of the bottom of this zone here. So resistance here at 154. We saw it bounce down here at 147. So watch for a resistance here at 154, where it's trading at right now. Seems as if that's where it really kind of got rejected. And so we'll be curious to see where it lands as far as support. We could see that come back to retest 148. Don't think that's likely. I think the more likely case is that we break above that 154. It looks like it's starting to do that now at 155, and we'll see where this takes us. Next resistance will be at 156.75. So keep an eye on that. I'm sure Dom will cover this a little bit more later on this evening at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So if you want to know how to make these trades, trade these stocks, he'll be happy to cover those. Let's go ahead and check back in on Upstart if there's any movement on this. Nope, still halted, I guess. Af Gorilla says, my guess Upstart's down 30%. I mean, yeah, that's just what I'm talking about. Like, and I talked about this at the beginning of the show. Anybody who's bullish on Upstart, give me a reason why. I'm not seeing anything on Upstart that I like, really, at all. So they announced a quarterly loss, a loss of growth by 45% last quarter. They're going to have to do something insane. They're going to have to do something crazy with these earnings. It was down 7% leading into these earnings. Maybe it goes bananas. And for those of you guys who are bullish on it, I hope it does. I can't get behind that. It's a little bit too risky. There's way better stocks out there to trade. So if you're super excited about it, my guess is you might be stuck in it. But hey, what do I know? Let's check in. Yes, somebody was talking about Zillow. Zillow came in and actually did quite well. And hey, stocks continue to move. It's up 3%. Pretty decent pop. Looks like there's some trading activity going on in that. If you guys didn't catch Zillow's numbers, they were quite good. The guidance numbers also above projections for the current quarter. And so that's why that stock is doing well right now. The big winner right now is Lyft. And the big catalyst with Lyft was free cash flow. Stock's up now, continuing to climb here. Jesus Christ, it's up 27%. How do you trade this tomorrow? I don't think you do. It's at $15.46. So that means it's all the way up here. So this is your on the left side of your screen. I have the daily chart pulled up on Lyft. Where you see my cursor, this blue line where it says post 1540 is where it's trading at right now. So all the way up here. I don't know with good conscience I could tell you to trade it there, but it almost looks like this was expected, right? You could see that 1238, that 1240 area was a really attractive area to load the boat on Lyft because it was just holding that support so well. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't all that bullish on Lyft, and I've been saying this for years. The ride sharing apps, ride sharing companies, I haven't been bullish on at all unless until Tesla comes out with a robo taxi or until Waymo starts to really take off. But you can kind of see where that 1240 area was actually a decent spot. If we're just making the trade, if we're not even, if we don't even look at the stock itself, and you just want to make a short trade on this, you don't even care what the ticker is. That 1240 area, 1230, 1240 looked like a really good spot. It was a previous resistance, really solid support there on the daily charts. So no surprise to kind of really see the move to the upside. I don't think anybody saw a 30% move because it is continuing to climb here. But anytime they talk about free cash flow, especially for the first time ever, you're going to get a move like this. Boner Candle City. I mean, that is unbelievable. Really crazy move on that. Let's pull up Upstart and still no movement on that. If you guys are curious about expectations on Upstart, earnings expectations were expected to come in at a loss of 14 cents, $135 million in revenue. Not one upward revision from the street on this. $3 billion in market cap is where this is trading. It's 10 times the 10 times the revenue that it brings in. They did come out with earnings numbers, but the stock is halted. They came in at a loss of 11 cents. They beat by 3 cents. Revenue of $140 million. They beat those expectations, but still come in for a slowing of growth by 5% year on year. Transaction volume and conversion rate, 129,000 loans were originated, totaling $1.3 billion across the platform in the fourth quarter. That's down 19% from the same quarter last year. This is halted. I don't think there's anything to like about this. Adjusted EBITDA was 0.6 million or 600,000, up from 16.6 million in the same quarter. Fourth quarter 2023 adjusted EBITDA margin was 0. Total revenue up from 11% in the same quarter prior year. Here's your Q1 guidance. Revenue of approximately 125 million. Revenue from fees of approximately 133 million. Wait, 125 million? What did they just come in Q4? 140 million. So they're expecting revenue to come in $15 million less than Q4. Am I reading that right? Revenue from fees of approximately 133 million. That's still far below last quarter and the year prior. Net interest income loss of approximately $8 million. Contribution margin of 61%. Guys, I hate to tell you, I got no reason to believe that Upstart's going anywhere once this is done. Once this starts trading again. Yeah, here you go. Thanks, Alex. Chief Executive Dave, whatever his last name is, Gerard, called out a difficult lending environment in Upstart's earnings release, but said the company's numbers will show that they've actually become more efficient in 2023. La-di-da. This thing's going to sell off whenever it starts trading again. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. I said it before these earnings came out, before the end of the close, before the end of the day, and I'm standing by that. No reason to buy this, in my opinion. My humble opinion. No reason to buy it. Would not touch it. Meanwhile, Lyft over here just continues to go. It's up 32.5%. 32.5% Lyft is up. All they had to say was free cash flow. Yeah, so sorry to all of you guys who are out there who I guess were, I don't know if you're bag holding on Upstart or I don't know, hoping for some sort of AMC type short squeeze, but it ain't happening here. Nothing to like with that. So with that being said, ladies and gents, appreciate you all tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. Those are all the earnings we covered. I'll be back tomorrow. It's another big week for earnings. So make sure that you're tuning in because it's not over. We have a lot more to cover, but this is really encouraging. I mean, this is a great quarter for a lot of stocks. Airbnb crushed it. Upstart crushed it. Robinhood also surprisingly did well. Lyft went bananas. And Zillow also did well. Real estate's starting to look good. So, really good day. Tomorrow we got Twilio, Occidental Petroleum, Cisco, Fastly, HubSpot, Upwork, QuantumScape. People still trading QuantumScape? We'll find out. Tomorrow they do have earnings. And also, you're going to want to come back Thursday afternoon as well for DraftKings, Coinbase, Roku, The Trade Desk, Applied Materials, DoorDash. That's going to be an amazing day too. Toast, Open Door, pre-market even on Thursday is going to be a big day. There's Crocs, John Deere, Yeti, Penn National, Wendy's. So we got a jam-packed week of earnings, guys. If you guys want to get more reactions like this and you haven't been here before, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Also, make sure you're back this evening for Don at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Would love to have you guys back and tune in for that as well. So that's going to do it for me. Have yourselves a great night. I'll catch you tomorrow.